Hey everybody, Jason Wright with another episode of ThreatWise TV. And today we're talking about Umbrella, one of my favorite topics, and absolutely part of our secure internet gateway, our secure web gateway, and part of our Sase solution as well. And today I'm talking with Nitin Kumar, and we're going to be talking about some of the enhancements and improvements. Nitin, thanks for joining us today, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, sure, Jason. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So we've got some new functionality as a cloud-based solution that protects users both on and off the network. We're constantly adding new functionality, new capabilities, new layers and ways and types of things that we're looking at and blocking. Tell us a little bit about what we've got to show our users today.
Yeah, great. So we're going to show a lot of new capabilities that we've added on to Umbrella. So one of them is tenant controls. So I'll actually walk you through how to allow approved access to certain applications that you commonly use today. We'll get into DLP, which I know it's huge. A lot of people are excited about. Inline DLP is something we've been working on for quite some time. And then we'll be talking about some enhancements we've made to our web policies or our SWG policies as well to really simplify and drive efficiency with how you create those policies in Umbrella. So the first thing I wanted to show, Jason, as you mentioned, first and foremost, for my demo, I'm using Cisco AnyConnect. So supporting that remote access, remote user use case, right? That a lot of us are working from home. Obviously, a lot of Cisco customers are using AnyConnect. So this is almost like mimicking the end user experience working from home remotely. And primarily that's kind of what we're using today. The first capability I wanted to show is called tenant controls. So what tenant controls does in Umbrella is enforces access to specific cloud applications within an organization. So if you're a customer that uses Office 365, or you're using G Suite or Slack, if you're using all three, there may be use cases where you want to say, look, I only want to allow users that are going through Umbrella to only access my approved or enterprise version of applications, right? So for 365, we have an option there. We have an option for Slack. And then we added this option here for this demo for G Suite. So in my case, I have a demo here, or excuse me, a domain that's teamelabs.com. This is my enterprise or approved domain. So as anyone is going through Umbrella, we'll actually show what the behavior will look like if they're trying to access like a personal instance. And really the use case here is things like data exfiltration and really just making sure that users from a productivity standpoint are only accessing the content that they're supposed to during work hours, right?
Probably a little regulatory liability oriented
Exactly.
aspects as well. Yeah, excellent.
Exactly. So we have a short demo to show that. Before that, I mentioned DLP. Again, this was a huge kind of ask from a lot of our customers. I'm really excited to show this today. So we have a couple different things that we have here. So the first thing I popped into is called data classification. So we've created about 80 plus different what we call data classifiers. And these are essentially predefined, you can think of them as a collection of words, phrases that would trigger a DLP policy. So these are the common ones, and this is based on kind of common compliance standards that we see, credit card numbers, social security numbers, and we even extend it to some international aspects as well, like UK passport numbers, IDs, etc. So what we can do here is select any number of classifiers to use in our DLP policy. And the other cool thing we've added on is the ability to also support custom keywords. So if I'm a company and I want to say, look, I don't want anybody to share, first of all, credit card numbers from a compliance standpoint, but I don't want anyone to share certain key terms or keywords, or I want to trigger based on that. So if someone types in the word confidential in an email or internal only in an email and tries to send that out, I as an admin should at least be aware of that. I should be alerted, or I should outright block that content. So we'll kind of show those use cases today. So with that, I'm going to jump into our demo environment here. So I mentioned we have tenant controls. So first thing I'll try to do here is log in as a Gmail user. So I'm going through Umbrella. This machine has AnyConnect enabled, and I should get blocked. Hey, Gmail is telling me that I'm not allowed to access this this Gmail account because the domain is gmail.com. This is a generic email that I created. So what I'll try to do here is now I'll say, okay, well, let me just log in using my work account and again, my domain there, and then I can go ahead and log in. And this time it should let me fully log into my corporate enterprise version of Gmail. Great. So I mentioned DLP. So what if I am a user and I say, hey, I want to share some credit card numbers with my buddy here. I just pre-created these before the demo, pop those in. I'm just simply sending an email with some credit card numbers. Okay, great. So did that. So what if I wanted to do the same thing? Let's see, CCN numbers. This time I want to send it as an attachment. So I created a document here that has credit card numbers in a document. So I'll do that. It attaches, great. Send it off to my friend so he can, use this credit card as he wants to. Last test I'll do here. I'll say, private info, and I'm going to type the keywords in confidential and internal only. I'm going to send that. All right. So what I'm basically doing is trying to test out to see if my DLP policy is actually working or not. So the next thing I'll do is pop into reports. So in Umbrella, we've introduced, because we have DLP now, we've introduced a separate report called a data protection report, where I could see all of the events that are specifically related to DLP violations. So we could see that I have a few new notifications here, one based on content. So I can, drop in here as an admin and say, hey, look, someone was using Gmail, so mail.google.com. They triggered my PII compliance DLP policy that I created, and it looks like they matched on these custom keywords. So basically showcasing that we're looking at these keywords and creating a DLP event for that. Same thing here. I can go into here. This is actually the file attachment that I uploaded with the credit card numbers in them. Same thing. It actually shows me the application type. It's a Word document, and then the size of the file. DocX is the content type, obviously. And the last thing here is what I actually typed in physically to the email, sent the credit card numbers that way.
So a couple of things that I've seen here. Number one, a new data protection report tab that's showing the violations against the DLP policy specifically.
Yep.
We saw some international support for some aspects of DLP that we need to have, but also saw some custom capabilities, custom words, values, and keywords that you could enter as well. So whatever we don't have there, if you need it, you can create your own rules out of that as well. Is that correct?
Exactly correct, Jason. So, since we're on the topic of data loss prevention, data security, Jason, one of the other things I wanted to show today is what I showcased is inline DLP. So be able to enforce in real time inline. DLP, if you look at other, different vendors in the market today, or just standalone DLP vendors, they support what's called multi-mode DLP, which means I support the inline use case, but I also want to support API use case. So a lot of us are working from home. We're accessing cloud applications today. Don't use VPN all the time, but I need a way to be able to connect in and get some visibility to what's happening within those applications. So one of the things we've introduced is this dashboard called the Cloud Malware Dashboard, where we connect to these supported applications. In my case, I'm connecting to WebEx Teams and Box. We do support Dropbox, Office 365 today. We're adding a few more of applications in the next few quarters. But what it's doing is essentially scraping or scanning all of the data at rest, all of the files that currently live in these applications. And now I can go in here and say, oh, wow, for WebEx Teams, I have all of these files that are actually malicious. So as an admin, I know that I need to take some action to figure out what's going on, right? So from here, this will tell me what the platform is, it's WebEx Teams, what the instance is, who the owner is, what location it's in, the size of the file, and then I can take some further actions. In this case, I can analyze it in VirusTotal. We will have very soon an option to pivot to Cisco Umbrella Investigate, and then we'll probably have some integrations with things like Cisco SecureX as well to be able to take the action a little bit further. So really, showcasing inline API based, and we're only going to continue to expand these capabilities. So I'm going to shift gears. So we talked about, all the different things we can do from an enforcement perspective. I wanted to focus a little bit on the admin perspective. So, as we're adding on a lot of these features, right, it could be a beast. So one of the things we've done recently is we've shifted the way you create policies for SWG, which is our web proxy capability. And we've moved from a setup wizard-driven kind of workflow where you have to click through multiple screens to set up a policy to a rules-based workflow. So the first thing we've done is you can see at the bottom here, we have this concept of rule set. So rule set contains all of the different policy components we previously had in Umbrella. So that means my identities, choosing the type of block page I want, adding on tenant controls like I showed earlier, adding on the file types that I want to enforce. So all of these things are now just shifted into a rule set. And to simplify things even further, we've added this concept of rules. So rules are our top-down approach. So if you're familiar with creating ACLs inside of a firewall, what we're doing is we're matching the rules in order. And it's very simple. So we create the rule name. I choose my rule action. So I have all the actions that are supported with my SWG today. Choose my identities that I want to apply this rule to, and choose my destinations. So a destination can today either be an application, a content category, right? Adult category, gambling, alcohol, etc. And then a destination list, which are basically a list of custom domains that you want to do some enforcement on. Okay. And the last thing, and again, this is fairly new to Umbrella as well, is the ability to set a schedule for each individual rule. So if I want to set a time zone to say, hey, I have a pretty restrictive rule here that I only want to have enforced during like lunchtime or lunch hours or during working hours, what have you, I have the ability to do that. So the way this is processed, once all of these criteria are met for rule number 1, process it, execute it, drop down and hit rule number 2, and so on and so forth. And the other cool thing is if I wanted to reorder the rules and say, hey, I actually want this this rule here to move up. And now this is the first rule in place, and I can go back and move it as I need to. I don't have to save anything. I don't have to apply anything. It just applies it automatically. So the other thing that I showed here is we have our rule actions. You probably noticed that there's a few things that may look new to you. So we have allow, we have block. Everyone is familiar with that. We've added this concept of warn. So warn is I want to warn certain content categories or domains for users. So if they're accessing something and maybe it isn't fully compliant or something that we deem that they shouldn't access but are allowing them to anyway, we'll present them a message to say, hey, warning, you're about to access a website that maybe isn't deemed appropriate based on HR or what have you, but the user has the ability to click through and access it anyway, and that will get sent to our reporting. The other action we have here is called isolate. So there's a new function in Umbrella called remote browser isolation, RBI for short. And the isolate function basically takes whatever content you want. So whether that's a website, using YouTube or a document, and basically does a redirect and isolates that traffic. So isolation means it's in its kind of self-contained version of that content or of that site. Now to the user, this is fully transparent. So as they're browsing through and they suddenly get trigger an isolate rule, it'll be transparent and they're just using the content as they need to. So one of the use cases here is if you want to isolate like certain document files, for example, WordX or PDF, we'll isolate it. It strips out all the macros and scripts that are running and gives them a clean version to view at that point. And the benefit is they're not bringing back any kind of malware or potential vulnerabilities back into the environment. So one example I wanted to show is I ran through created an isolation policy earlier yesterday. So I can quickly show you what that looks like in reporting. So I chose to isolate youtube.com. So I want to say, look, isolate everything that has to do with media. And you can see a bunch of kind of triggers here. The action shows isolate, and then I can view all the details that I need to for YouTube, right? To say, yes, it was fully isolated by Umbrella. So Jason, that was really it for the demo today. So I kind of ran through a lot of different use cases, right? Again, kind of the focus around what we're doing to support remote users. Again, this is fully done through my AnyConnect client. So I'm mimicking myself as a remote user, but also showing some of the new capabilities we're adding on based on some of the requirements customers have around Sase as well. So tenant controls, RBI, DLP, et cetera.
Well, like I said, seeing the continued evolution of new feature sets and functionality is indicative of the level of commitment that we have with this product and how we continue to develop it. I mean, this is a nice, healthy list of new functionality and capabilities. We saw DLP, we saw tenant control, we saw cloud malware, we saw web policy, we saw remote browser isolation. So there's like 5 things right there that are how we're staying busy with Umbrella. So if anybody wants to learn a little bit more about this technology, be sure to check out our landing page at cisco.com/go/umbrella. And you can always check out additional episodes of ThreatWise TV and see other things about Umbrella, like how we integrate with other parts of Sase, like SD-WAN, with our Viptela solution. So how Umbrella and Viptela are working together is a great episode that we've posted recently. So anyway, you can always check out additional episodes about all of our technologies at cisco.com/go/threatwise. So Nitin, thanks so much for coming on. And for now, I've been Jason Wright. Everybody stay safe out there. And thanks for tuning in to this episode of ThreatWise TV.